Jordan putting moves on Russell. We're down to 2, down to 1. Here's Jordan. Yes!
All right, let's take a look at this baby. By Petrovic, up, no.
Steal as Morton drove the lane. Now Armstrong coming back off to Michael.
You gonna do this? Okay, fine. That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
You don't need a stat sheet to understand Michael Jordan. All it takes is one look at the way he played the game. The truth about him isn't buried in advanced analytics or award counts. It's written in the moments that stop time. Like the leaning jumper he buried with a championship on the line, or the mid-air switch from his right to left hand, just to remind the world that he could. Or when he hit 6 three-pointers in one half of the NBA Finals and simply shrugged at the bench, because even he couldn't believe how easy he was making it look. Every move he made felt deliberate, like the game was unfolding exactly the way he had imagined it beforehand. There was a rhythm to his game, a sense of timing and control that separated him from everyone else on the floor. When Jordan played, it never felt random. It felt like he was the one directing how the story would go. Michael Jordan wasn't just another superstar. Watching him play was like witnessing something bigger than the game itself, the kind of performance that made fans hold their breath and opponents question if they even belonged on the same court. If you looked away for a second, you risked missing a play that would become part of NBA history. This isn't about the titles, the MVPs, or the perfect record in the finals. Those things added to his legend, but they weren't the reason people were scared to face him. This is about the moments, the plays that made you pause the TV and rewind, the plays that made his opponents lower their heads, the moments that turned Michael Jordan into something more than a player. These are the ones that made him untouchable. When you're a young player facing the Boston Celtics in the 80s, you don't go looking for trouble. You run the plays, you try not to make mistakes, and above all, you don't challenge Larry Bird. But that's not how Michael Jordan operated. Respect wasn't something he handed out, especially not if it got in the way of a bucket. So when he got matched up against one of the most cold-blooded killers in the game, Jordan didn't back off. He went right at him.
12-point lead in the first half of the game against the Celtics Thursday. Jordan trying to fake Bird, can't do it.
No hesitation, just a tight crossover into another, leaving Bird shifting his weight in the wrong direction as Jordan rose up and buried the jumper in his face. It wasn't just the shot. It was who he did it against. Larry was already a legend. Jordan was just getting started. But plays like this were early signs that he wasn't waiting for his era to arrive. He was already rewriting the rules, one highlight at a time, even if that meant humbling a Hall of Famer. There are players who run the break with speed, there are others who finish it with power. But Michael Jordan did it with something else entirely. On a fast break, most guys are focused on getting to the rim before the defense recovers. Jordan wasn't worried about the clock or the chase. He moved like he had all the time in the world, because when he had the ball in the open court, there was no rush, just rhythm.
Almost stolen by Johnson. Now here comes Jordan. Look out! Oh my! The finger roll from Michael.
As the defender lunged, trying to cut him off, Jordan never flinched. He cradled the ball with just enough touch to keep it out of reach, then lofted it off the glass so gently it barely disturbed the net. It wasn't a poster dunk or a highlight finish. It was something quieter and smarter, and somehow even more cruel. Because in that moment, the defender wasn't just beaten, he was outclassed. That wasn't athleticism, that was manipulation. And Jordan made it look effortless. There's a moment in every great player's rookie season where things begin to click. A flash of potential, a glimpse of who they might become. But for Michael Jordan, that moment didn't arrive gradually. It exploded onto the court. From the jump, he played with the kind of confidence most players spend a decade trying to earn. The game didn't seem to intimidate him. In fact, he looked like he was already bored with being new.
Well, it really can be a spectacular night for the Bulls as Jordan has come up with another steal.
He strips the ball clean, races down the floor, and throws down a windmill dunk sideways, smooth, and entirely unnecessary in the best possible way. There were safer ways to finish that play, quieter ones. But that wasn't the point. This wasn't just a steal and a slam. It was a message, a warning shot from a rookie who didn't see himself as a future star, because he already knew he was one. Moments like this weren't about what he could be. They were about what he already was and how quickly everyone else would have to catch up. Every legend has a performance that separates them from the rest, not because of stats or stakes, but because of what they endured to make it happen. For Jordan, that moment came with a deficit, a pounding fever and a body barely able to stand. Most players wouldn't have suited up. Michael suited up and took over. But it wasn't just that he played. It was how he closed.
Pippen backing Courtside. Here's Jordan. Yes! Chicago lead with 6 2/10 seconds to go in the fourth quarter.
That's hard.
With the game hanging in the balance, he steps into a deep three, launches it clean, and watches it splash through the net as the building erupts. And then, while he's drained, drenched, barely upright, he leans into Scottie Pippen, exhausted but triumphant. That wasn't just a shot, it was a final word. A moment that proved Jordan didn't just rise to the occasion, he dragged himself through it and still found a way to break you. Even sick or stumbling, he was still the most dangerous man on the floor. Some players need space to operate. Others make their own. Michael Jordan thrived in the chaos. The more defenders, the more impossible the angle, the more likely it was that he'd still find a way to score. Against the Miami Heat in the playoffs, with the defense collapsing around him like a cage, Jordan didn't just take what he was given. He manufactured a shot from nothing.
Around the Georgia screen, back to Michael, three-point arc. Against Long, starts the drive, spins down the middle, hangs in the air, and floats it in.
He spins through a crowd, hangs in midair with defenders swiping from every angle, then double clutches and floats a jumper over the mess like it was second nature. It wasn't the cleanest look, and definitely wasn't the smartest shot on paper. But for Jordan, it was routine. There was no panic, just patience, footwork, and a level of body control that made physics feel optional. The defense did everything right, and still ended up in the highlight. Some plays don't need build-up, they don't need clock pressure or postseason stakes. All they need is a split second, one where Jordan sees daylight, and everyone else realizes they're already too late. This was one of those moments, no elaborate setup, no need for isolation. Just a catch, a read, and a decision so quick the defense couldn't even react.
Been giving these numbers a lot today. The Bulls only 2 baskets in the last 14 minutes. Jordan.
He snatches the ball, fakes just enough to freeze the help, then slices through the lane and detonates at the rim before anyone can close the gap. The defenders don't just get beat, they vanish. It wasn't a flashy dunk. It was direct, explosive, and surgical. Jordan didn't need to go over everyone. He just needed one wrong step, one twitch, and once that happened, it was already too late. That wasn't just speed or athleticism, it was complete control over time and space. There are plays that get replayed because of what they meant. And then there are plays that get replayed simply because no one can believe they actually happened. This one didn't win a series. It didn't close a game. But ask any fan who watched it live, it felt like a magic trick. The kind of moment where time slows down and your brain has to catch up to what your eyes just saw.
9. The look away to Livingston. Jordan. Oh! A split!
He takes off toward the rim with full intent to dunk, only to float midair longer than humanly reasonable, switch the ball to his left hand and lay it in gently off the glass, all while drifting past the entire Lakers front court. It wasn't about showboating. He didn't need to switch hands. That's what made it so devastating. He did it because he could, because mid-flight he saw an even better way to score. And that kind of decision-making at that speed, that's what separates Jordan from everyone else. Most legends walk away before the game catches up to them. But Michael Jordan wasn't most legends. When he returned with the Wizards, he was older, slower, and far removed from his prime, at least on paper. But even without the same burst or the same spotlight, he still had something that couldn't be aged out, which was his control. And when it came down to a one-on-one matchup, that was all he needed.
Jordan keeping the dribble. Stuck right with Anderson, just looked over at him and said, man, you're 40 years old.
He sizes up the defender, gets to his spot, and knocks down a tough, contested jumper like it's routine, then turns and lets him know about it. Not with yelling, just with a quiet sentence and a glare that reminded everyone exactly who he still was. It wasn't about proving he could hang. It was about reminding the league that no matter how old he got, the game still belonged to him. And on plays like this, age didn't matter. Reputation did. In the finals, every moment gets magnified. Every shot carries weight. Every mistake lingers. And with the game tied in the final seconds of Game 1 against the Utah Jazz, the entire arena held its breath. Everyone knew the Bulls were going to Jordan. The question wasn't who would take the shot. It was whether anyone could stop it. And if history had taught us anything by then, it was that trying to stop Michael Jordan in the clutch was more about hope than strategy.
We're down to 5. Jordan putting moves on Russell. We're down to 2. Down to 1. Here's Jordan. Yes! It is all over.
He takes the inbound, calmly surveys the floor, then dribbles himself into rhythm like he's done it 1,000 times. With a flick of the wrist, he rises into a perfect mid-range jumper and drains it like it was a shoot-around. No drama and no wasted movement. Just surgical execution. The ball hadn't even hit the floor before the Jazz were walking off in silence. There was no celebration from Jordan, just a subtle nod and a walk toward the bench like it was business as usual. Because for him, it was. Game 6 of the 1998 NBA Finals wasn't just another closeout opportunity. It was the end of something, even if no one knew it for sure at the time. The Bulls were trying to secure their 6th title. The Utah Jazz were trying to force a Game 7, and Michael Jordan was trying to make sure no one else touched the ball. Down by 1, the moment didn't call for a miracle play or a last-second scramble. It called for something far more dangerous. He steals the ball from Karl Malone like it was scripted, barely breaking stride, then glides down the floor with the weight of the dynasty in his hands. No timeout, only silence. The kind of silence that only exists when everyone knows what's coming but still can't stop it.
Game 7, or from championship number 6. Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead!
He sizes up Brian Russell, takes one hard dribble, then plants. The crossover is so sharp, so controlled, it doesn't just shake Russell, it erases him. Jordan rises, holds the pose, and buries the jumper like he was closing a chapter. It was inevitable. And as the ball sank through the net, Jordan stood there, frozen in place, his arm extended like punctuation. That shot didn't just win a game, it shut the door on an era, no need for overtime or a Game 7. That was the final word, delivered by the man who always knew how to finish a story. There are games where everything feels locked in, and then there are games where it seems like the player has unlocked something no one else has access to. In Game 1 of the 1992 Finals, Michael Jordan hit that zone. 6 three-pointers in a single half. For a player not even known for his shooting range at the time, it was absurd. Each shot was cleaner than the last. The crowd in Chicago couldn't believe it. The broadcasters couldn't believe it. And honestly, neither could Jordan.
Here's Jordan for 3. Yes!
After number 6 drops, he turns to the broadcast table and just shrugs. No flex, no fist pump, just that quiet gesture that said, "I don't know either." But deep down, he did. He knew he'd just broken the game. That shrug didn't mean he was surprised, it meant he was in complete control. He wasn't just taking over, he was enjoying it. When a player starts making history and laughing in the middle of it, that's not competition anymore. That's domination with a smile. By 2002, most players would have been coasting on reputation. Jordan was nearly 40, with 2 retirements behind him and a legacy already carved in stone. But competitive fire doesn't care about age. And even when the legs weren't what they used to be, the instinct and the will was still sharper than ever. So when an opponent broke free on a fast break, thinking the old man behind him was out of the play, he made a mistake Jordan would make him remember.
Michael blocked by Artest. Oakley to Mercer. Mercer on the run. What a play!
From behind, Jordan accelerates just enough to catch up, then launches with perfect timing and pins the shot to the backboard with both hands. No fouls, just precision. It wasn't a highlight that got played on repeat back then, but it should have been. Because this wasn't a relic of who he used to be. This was proof that even at the end, Jordan still had it in him to erase your confidence in an instant. It wasn't just a block, it was a reminder. You don't outrun greatness, not even when it's wearing 39-year-old legs. Most players treat preseason like a tune-up. A chance to knock off rust, test a few lineups, maybe stretch their legs, but Michael Jordan never played at half speed, not in practice, not in scrimmages, and definitely not in a preseason game. To him, every possession was a message. Every opportunity was a moment to remind you who you were on the court with. And in 1987, that reminder came in the form of a dunk so violent, it silenced the gym. He rises with full intent, clears the help defender with ease, and slams it down with so much force the entire bench reacts before the ball even hits the floor. It wasn't just power. It was the way he attacked the rim, like it owed him something. The scoreboard didn't matter, the date didn't matter. All that mattered was that there was a defender under the basket who thought they had a chance. And Jordan, even in a game that technically didn't count, made sure they knew just how wrong they were. No team pushed Jordan harder than the Detroit Pistons. The bad boys made it their mission to turn every drive into a collision, every possession into a war. But even they couldn't stop what they couldn't time. This play wasn't a breakaway. It wasn't a clean look or a drawn-up set. It was chaos. 3 defenders closing in, hands flying, bodies leaning. And Jordan, somehow, making sense of it all midair. He takes the hit, adjusts, then rises a second time, still in midair, and drops the shot clean over all 3. It wasn't lucky. It was calculated madness. The kind of play that made defenders feel like their effort didn't matter. The Pistons had the bodies, they had the system, but they didn't have an answer for that. Because there is no defensive scheme for a player who can hover long enough to take the shot he wants, not the one you give him. Most blocks come from anticipation. A good read, a quick jump, maybe a bit of help side timing. But this was something different. The offensive player had a clean lane. He went up strong, thinking he had the angle and the space, but what he didn't account for, what most never could, was how high Michael Jordan could go when he was determined to make a point.
Should get something here. Long.
Tough shot. Real tough shot. Coming down on the wing. Trailers in the middle.
He launches like a rocket, clears the shooter's release point, and smacks the ball off the glass with an authority that echoed louder than any crowd reaction. It wasn't just a defensive stop. It was a warning. The kind of block that doesn't just deny 2 points, but erases confidence. He didn't get there with timing alone. He got there because he refused to let that shot go. And the look on his face after? Nothing. No reaction. Because for Jordan, it wasn't just about blocking the shot. It was about making sure they remembered who took it away. Michael Jordan's game wasn't just built on scoring. What made him terrifying was that he could control the pace, the rhythm, and the outcome of a possession, sometimes before it even began. In the 1993 playoffs, while most players were still chasing boards and looking for their footing, Jordan was already 2 steps ahead. And on this play, he didn't just grab a rebound, he turned it into a weapon.
5 shots in the December 19th game at Chicago. Gilliam with the left hand.
I love
Michael, a one-handed rebound. Lead for Pippen.
He glides in with perfect timing, plucks the ball out of the air with one hand like it was handed to him, and without coming down fully, fires an on-the-money outlet pass to a streaking teammate. With pure instinct. The kind of play that only happens when your feel for the game is second nature. Most players grab the rebound and scan. Jordan grabbed it and attacked. He didn't need to think about what came next. He already saw it. And by the time the defense reacted, the ball was halfway down the court. Michael Jordan didn't just raise the bar, he became the bar. Every era that came after him was forced to measure itself against a standard that felt impossible to reach. He wasn't built on one skill or one specialty. He was the complete blueprint. He didn't need to shout, didn't need to showboat. The game spoke for him, and what it said was final. These moments weren't accidents. They were calculated, cruel, and deliberate. A shrug in the middle of a finals, a crossover and a jumper that ended a dynasty, a windmill dunk in his rookie year, a block at age 39. Every one of them was part of the same message. He wasn't here to compete, he was here to take over. And when you thought he was slowing down, he reminded you that greatness isn't about age or flash. It's about control. This wasn't about MVPs or rings. This was about the moments, the ones that made defenders hesitate and made fans jump out of their seats. Moments that still live in slow motion, even decades later. Jordan didn't just win. He rewrote how winning looked, how basketball looked. And most of all, he made sure you felt it every single time. He didn't talk about legacy. He built it, with hang time, with grace, and with absolute cruelty. And when he walked away, there was nothing left for the rest, just Michael Jordan, the standard that still stands.